Law number 3, the law of process. Leadership develops daily, not in a day. Ann Scheiber was 101 years old when she died in January 1995. For years, she had lived in a tiny, run-down, rent-controlled studio apartment in Manhattan. The paint on the walls was peeling, and the old bookcases that lined the walls were covered in dust. Rent was $400 a month. Scheiber lived on Social Security and a small monthly pension, which she started receiving in 1943 when she retired as an auditor for the Internal Revenue Service. She was 51 when she retired and was making only $3,150 a year. Scheiber was the model of thrift. She didn't spend money on herself. She didn't buy new furniture as the old pieces she owned became worn out. She didn't even subscribe to a newspaper. About once a week, she used to go to the public library to read the Wall Street Journal. Imagine the surprise of Norman Lamb, the president of Yeshiva University in New York City, when he found out that Ann Scheiber, a little old lady whose name he had never heard and who had never attended Yeshiva, left nearly her entire estate to the university. When I saw the will, it was mind-blowing. Such an unexpected windfall, said Lamb. This woman has become a legend overnight. The estate Ann Scheiber left to Yeshiva University was worth $22 million. How in the world did a spinster who had been retired for 50 years build an 8-figure fortune? The answer is, she did it, one day at a time. By the time she retired from the IRS in 1943, she had managed to save $5,000. She invested that money in stocks. In 1950, she had made enough profit to buy 1,000 shares of Shearing Plow Corporation stock, then valued at $10,000. And she held on to that stock, letting its value build. By the time she died, those original shares split enough times to produce 128,000 shares worth $7.5 million. When it came to finances, Scheiber understood and applied the law of process. Becoming a leader is a lot like investing successfully in the stock market. If you hope to make a fortune in a day, you're not going to be successful. There are no successful day traders in leadership development. What matters most is what you do day by day over the long haul. If you continually invest in your leadership development, letting your assets compound, the inevitable result is growth over time. In a study of 90 top leaders from a variety of fields, leadership experts Warren Bennis and Bert Nannis made a discovery about a relationship between growth and leadership. It is the capacity to develop and improve their skills that distinguishes leaders from their followers. That's what happened to me when I took my first leadership position in 1969. I had captained sports teams all my life and had been the student government president in college, so I already thought that I was a leader. But when I tried to lead people in the real world, I found out the awful truth. Being put in charge is not the same as being a leader. I struggled for a while in that first leadership position. To be honest, I relied on my extremely high energy and whatever charisma I possessed. But there came a moment when I realized that leadership was going to be the key to my professional career. If I didn't get better at leadership, my career would eventually bog down, and I would never reach the goals that I had set for myself. Fortunately, at that time, I had breakfast with Kurt Kampmeyer of Success Motivation, Inc. At that breakfast, he asked me a question that would change my life. "John," he asked, "what is your plan for personal growth?" I fumbled for an answer and then finally admitted that I didn't have one. That night, my wife Margaret and I decided to make financial sacrifices so that I could get on the program that Kurt offered. That was an intentional step toward growth. From that day to now, I have made it a practice to read books, listen to tapes, and go to conferences on leadership. Around the time I met with Kurt, I also had another idea. I wrote to the top 10 leaders in my field and offered them $100 for half an hour of their time so I could ask them some questions. That was quite a sum for me back then. For the next several years, Margaret and I planned every vacation around where those leaders lived. If a great leader in Cleveland said yes to my request, then that year we vacationed in Cleveland so I could meet him. I can't explain how valuable those experiences were for me. Those leaders shared insights with me that I could have learned no other way. When you recognize your lack of skill and begin the daily discipline of personal growth, exciting things start to happen. What a person does on a disciplined, consistent basis gets him ready no matter what the goal. You can see the effect of the law of process in any walk of life. NBA Hall of Fame player Larry Bird became an outstanding free throw shooter by practicing 500 shots each morning before he went to school. Demosthenes of ancient Greece became the greatest orator by reciting verses with pebbles in his mouth and speaking over the roar of the ocean's waves, and he did it despite having been born with a speech impediment. You need to have the same dedication. To become an excellent leader, you need to work on it every day.